So let me be clear. BP is responsible for this leak. BP will be paying the bill. But as President of the United States, I'm going to spare no effort to respond to this crisis for as long as it continues. And we will spare no resource to clean up whatever damage is caused.
A rain-soaked buck stops here kind of moment for President Obama in Louisiana yesterday.
Fair to say that's not how we wanted to spend his Sunday. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABCNews.com's Top Line. I'm David Chalian.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday we're bringing you the very latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need and want to know about politics.
And from the red carpet and now back here on the set, it's twitter.com/The Note. Let us know what you think.
A whole new week, sir. Get us started.
Indeed. In action, the K word is still on everyone's lips as President Obama decides to head down to the Gulf Coast, made a quick trip there yesterday, and now we are seeing the full range of the federal response in action. Cabinet secretaries fanning out across the media to tell about all the things that are going on. We're seeing BP folks step up their public presence as well. Clearly, the White House, they were a couple of days behind, in my judgment, on the big kind of robust reaction. They are swinging into any kind of action they can show right now to say we are on top of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people can take the K word and leave it off of their lips. I don't think there's any Katrina comparison here. I think people are eager to do that because of the region of the country. I don't think this is human beings on rooftops. I think we are in a totally different environment. I just don't think Katrina is the right comparison here. The unknown unknowns. Yes, to borrow some Rumsfeldian language, as Rick was just talking about the oil spill crisis management mode that the administration is now in. Add now this failed car bombing in Times Square over the weekend, and you realize that pivoting to jobs is not the easiest thing to do. Never mind the fact that you have a Supreme Court nomination you need to roll out. They are far and farther away from where they wanted to be sort of hammering the daily meshes.
And energy and immigration and financial regulatory reform is still hanging out there. Not done yet either. Yeah, it's hard to set an agenda when all these things start piling on. You're right. It is one of those lessons about you can only control so much in this world. Mahmoud v. Hillary. The main bout today in New York is Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, speaking at a new conference on nuclear nonproliferation, and Hillary Clinton will come back with a response this afternoon. This is going to be closely watched for its implications, obviously, in our relationship with Iran, our relationship with Israel, and the difficult situation the administration has put itself in. A lot of critics on the other side say, look, no more talk about sanctions, no more sanctions. We have to see some action here. Clearly, Ahmadinejad knows how to use these platforms.
No doubt about it. This is not who Hillary Clinton wants to be sort of up against all day long in the news cycle, and yet it is clearly unavoidable. Laugh lines, that's right. Obama outshines Leno on the big White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend, and we will have our two intrepid red carpet reporters here to tell us everything you guys saw on the red carpet this weekend. We'll get to that.
We saw David Chalian, among others.
We saw David Chalian, among others, yeah. I'm sure that was the highlight of the night. We're going to get started with the Supreme Court battle that is before us by taking a look back at some of the previous Supreme Court battles. We're joined by David Van Taylor. He's the director of Advise and Dissent, which is a new documentary starring Pat Leahy, Arlen Specter, and, of course, the conservative and liberal groups that sort of mount this massive battle. David, thank you very much for being here. The documentary is hitting the festival circuit, and your timing couldn't be better. What did you learn as you were making this? I always find these Supreme Court battles a bit, I don't know, we know the end result. There's a little bit of kabuki theater to it, and I wondered what you found sort of compelling and dramatic in it that was somehow surprising to you.
Well, I went in thinking that I was going to be documenting behind the scenes of one Supreme Court nomination and confirmation battle. That was the nomination of John Roberts. It turned out that I was actually documenting behind the scenes of 3 nominations and 2 confirmations, and in fact it took turns that nobody really could have anticipated in advance. Harriet Miers, who, as you recall, was nominated after John Roberts was confirmed, at first seemed like a shoo-in. The Democrats were for her. The Republicans, were they going to argue with the White House? Well, it turned out that they did, and they did in a very unpredictable way, all because of one guy who we happen to be following. So I think there can be excitement and surprises here.
Well, talk about the relevance to your mind of the upcoming battle. Are there certain things you just can expect based on those 3 confirmation hearings and what we've seen with Sotomayor a year ago? Or are there things that are just baked into the system? This is what you get now with the Supreme Court confirmation?
Well, I think what you're definitely going to get is a lot of political contention, no matter what. President Obama, can nominate the most confirmable nominee possible, and that's what President Bush thought that Harriet Miers was. He opted for Harriet Miers because he didn't want to fight, and yet there's likely to be a fight anyway. There's an election coming up. This is an issue that the Republicans particularly have made very successfully an electoral issue for their base, especially in the primaries, and so there's going to be fights no matter what. What you can't really predict is the nominee itself, him or herself, nor can you predict how open and honest a discussion of judicial philosophy there's going to be. John Roberts basically told the Senate Judiciary Committee nothing. He smiled a lot and said, "I'm sorry, I can't comment on that because it may be a case coming before the court." Samuel Alito, on the other hand, had a track record that was so long and so in deep that he really couldn't run from it. I think with Sotomayor, we saw a bit of a rerun of the Roberts stealth or vanilla strategy. It really depends on who Obama nominates to find out who we're going to get, what kind of fight we're going to get.
I think the White House would like to repeat that Roberts Sotomayor script this time around when they get their nominee there. I do want to ask you, though, about that big Harriet Miers surprise. You were documenting the process at the time, and when did you realize, or what do you identify as sort of the moment that turned her from being this glide path to the nomination to realizing she was in serious trouble?
Well, I mean, it was, I think, 3 minutes after President Bush made his public announcement that Manny Miranda, the conservative advocate that we had been following, a guy who had a very interesting backstory,
yes.
He had been drummed out of the Hill for something called Memogate, that he, who was now on the outside, issued a press release saying that she was the worst nominee essentially since Abe Fortas, which are fighting words to anybody who knows anything about the history of Supreme Court confirmations. So I knew there was going to be a fight right away. I had no idea whether Manny was going to be successful. And in the film, you really see behind the scenes of how he turned it around, not all by himself, but really starting from him, using just his phone and his Rolodex, essentially.
You've seen many critics, including Vice President Biden, talk about and Schumer and others talk about how the hearings themselves before the Judiciary Committee have just become sort of a silly game. What's your read? Is there anything we should be looking at in them that would make them a little more interesting, or are they just for show?
I think that the hearings can be a great public discussion of what we want in the Supreme Court, and that's what they're supposed to be. The confirmation process and the nomination process, after all, is where the democratically elected branches of the government meet the judiciary. It's the one time where the political branches and our representatives get a crack at what kind of court we're going to have and what kind of justice we're going to have. And if you look back to 1987's fight over Robert Bork, which is the font of a lot of this, you can see that it can be a real discussion of what kind of justice we want. Do we want people who say that they're following just the original intent of the Constitution or of the founders, which of course is open to interpretation, or do we want a court that evolves over time and responds to the needs of the nation, right, which is also open to interpretation? Unfortunately, since Bork, what we've frequently gotten is nominees who just don't want to answer the question. And I think we need to try and find a way back, as we did on the right with Alito, to an honest discussion of what kind of justice we want.
David Van Taylor, the director of Advise and Dissent. Congratulations on the documentary, sir, and thanks a lot for being here.